USTA football. The Andy Poland Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Poland Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
11 games to go. 6 goals needed for Alex Ovechkin to break Wayne Gretzky's record, but only 4 of them are at home. Could there be some strategery involved here? We'll get to that. Also, the Kevin Willard situation, far from settled, sounds like. Maryland's playing tomorrow night against top seed Florida in the NCAA tournament. If they go out, could that be Kevin Willard's last game at the University of Maryland with an open seat still at Villanova, a seat that they need to fill fairly quickly? Transfer portal is open. 700 players are in it. Whew! So we'll get to all that coming up. Also, we do Orioles preview every Wednesday through the baseball season, which is going to launch tomorrow. The Orioles open up in Toronto. The Nationals are home against the Philadelphia Phillies. And at 10:30, we'll take a look at the season ahead for the Baltimore Orioles. I want to get to the Willard situation and the Capitals, and I'm going to spend more time on this at 10 o'clock. But I just wanted to mention being at the John Feinstein Memorial Service yesterday at Congressional Country Club, and the number of people there who are so well known throughout the sports world and the world of journalism was stunning. But listen to this list of speakers who honored John yesterday, including family members, his sister Margaret Feinstein and his daughter Jane Feinstein, and his brother Bobby was the MC of the event and also gave some wonderful memories of John. But listen to this. Mike Krzyzewski, he was the only one that wasn't there. He was on video. Jackson Deal, who was part of a Pulitzer Prize-winning team at the Washington Post a couple of years ago. Sally Jenkins and Mary Carrillo, two of the premier journalists, male or female, anywhere. David Marinas, who's won a Pulitzer Prize and wrote one of the best sports books ever written, called When Pride Still Mattered. It was about Vince Lombardi. Gary Williams, Hall of Fame coach, national champion, and arguably the greatest reporter who ever lived, Bob Woodward, who was the last of the celebrity speakers, so to speak, before his family members spoke. So I'll get to that. But, God, I mean, just talk about a send-off for a person who was, complicated. And what you may have heard, what you may have read, all of it's true. I knew John fairly well over the last 30 years. A lot of people knew him better who spoke about him and who were there. But it was perfect for him. And I'll talk about that coming up. I'm looking at the schedule here with the Capitals heading to Minnesota tomorrow night. And Ovechkin got the tying goal last night in Winnipeg, but they lost in overtime. They're still in outstanding shape because even with the loss, they get the point for OT, so they're still a point ahead of Winnipeg for the best record in the league, for whatever that means. I mean, they've been President's Cup champions before and have gone out in the first round. But, it's something that you shoot for, means home ice throughout the playoffs, the whole thing. So here's what's left after tomorrow night in Minnesota. They are home on Sunday at 3 o'clock against Buffalo. Then they go back on the road for 2 at Boston and at Carolina. Then a week from Friday, they're home against Chicago. And Sunday, and this is not a home game, but this is intriguing here, they have a 12:30 national TV game against the Islanders. It's at New York. But, if you can't break it at home, breaking it on national TV isn't the worst thing, although this gets into the strategic part of it. After that game, they have a few days off. They're home against Carolina on Thursday, April 10th. And then they play at Columbus Saturday, April 12th. And then the last home game of the season is also against Columbus. So it's a home and home back-to-back, playing in Columbus Saturday, home against Columbus on Sunday. And I'm just looking at the ticket prices. The lowest ticket price right now for that game is $213. That's probably way up in the 400 section. So if you look at maybe getting great seats, the price is going to go up, especially if it gets closer. But here's where you get to the strategic part. Let's say he doesn't break the record or tie the record in that home game or before that home game on the 13th. The last 2 regular season games, and remember, these goals only count for regular season, not the playoffs. The last two games are on the road. At New York against the Rangers, Tuesday, April 15th, and the last game of the season is at Pittsburgh on April 17th. I wonder about this, too. Did the league not think that he would do it this year? I mean, it would require 42 goals for him to get past Gretzky, because maybe they could have flipped around the schedule a little bit, maybe had home games at the end of the season instead of 2 road games to end it. But let's say he doesn't do it. I wonder if you sit him out, get him rested up for the playoffs, and then you have the whole offseason. I think it's good for hockey, the whole offseason to build up to the record breaker, which is likely to come in the first week or so of the season. The only problem with the NHL is it launches right in the teeth of the football season. So now's the time when they can get attention, especially once we finish up the NCAA tournament, which would be Monday, April the 7th. So after that, they would still have 5 games left to go, 2 of them at home. But I look at this and just looking from a strategic point of view, how you want to milk this the best way you can for the NHL, because I would imagine once he gets to within 4, like 2 more, I got to think that Gary Bettman and Wayne Gretzky start traveling together. The only other thing I'd mention about the schedule is last night was the last game in Canada. And given the circumstances of where this country is with Canada, I'm not so sure that would be a good thing to have him break the record there. So if he does do it on the road, the opportunities to do it on the road the rest of the season, he's not going to do it tonight. He's not going to get 6 tonight. He's not going to get 6, I don't think, over the next 2 games. That's Minnesota and Buffalo, or Buffalo's a home game, excuse me. So let's say miraculously he gets a hat trick over the next 2 games and another goal. So he's got 4 goals, and he needs 2 more. Then you got 2 road games, at Boston, at Carolina. The Friday, April 4th game against Chicago is realistic. The Thursday, April 10th game against Carolina is realistic. The Sunday, April 13th game would be the last chance to do it. But more importantly, all the other games of the 11 remaining, none of them are in Canada, which I think at this point is probably a good thing. So that was the last one last night, where he did not break the record, but he got closer to breaking the record with a goal, which puts him within 6. All right, let's get to the Kevin Willard situation. He was supposed to appear on 106.7 The Fan yesterday morning with the Junkie Show. They had scheduled him, and it was pretty late too. It wasn't like an appearance at 7 o'clock. Now, they are on the West Coast. I guess they stayed out there. They're in San Francisco, and they're playing tomorrow night against top seed Florida. It's a 7:40 tip. And Willard missed his appearance with all the swirl, which he created. Remember, it was a week ago tomorrow. It's been less than a week since he spewed all this stuff about, what he needs to have, and he doesn't know who he's negotiating with because the athletic director is already gone. But things have to change. He has to get certain things. He didn't say, I'm using Villanova as leverage here, but everybody knows that his name has been mentioned for the Villanova job. And the message was, if you don't meet my demands, I'm gone. And he aired dirty laundry, which you don't often hear. Talking about a game that they had in New York on the 21st of December, was not Christmas Eve. He asked if he could stay another day, and they told him they didn't have the money to do that. Those are the things you don't really need to get out, but he did that. And so there's been this, incredible speculation now as to what's going to happen. Now, Daryl Pines, who is the president of the University of Maryland, put out a tweet yesterday, and he said, exciting announcement tomorrow, stay tuned, Terps. It would seem on the surface that there would be an announcement that there's a contract extension for Willard, because he's already signed up through 2028. It's not like there's an emergency to give him a new contract, but there'll be an announcement of that. I think it's more likely to be that Brian Ullman is the new athletic director. I think that's what's going to happen here. And listen to this. This is from yesterday on the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980. He did get a hold of Kevin Willard after he had missed his appearance on their sister station. And he tried to get a commitment out of him, and Willard would only go so far. So, again, this was yesterday on the Team 980, Kevin Sheehan with Kevin Willard.
Are you staying at Maryland or going?
Yeah. You know what? I've had over the last week, I know I've said some things that have raised people's eyes. But Maryland's been great. We're in a perfect shape. I missed the radio show today, and everybody thinks I missed the radio show today because I overslept. I'm on West Coast time now. Everything that my concerns have been about the job, and that was my whole point of my press conference. And maybe my jersey came out of me not in the greatest way. Was I want to make this program the best, and I think when you have an opportunity to do it, you have to take advantage of the opportunity, Kevin. And obviously losing the athletic director has been a little bit of I wouldn't say it's been a little hard, to be honest with you, just because I wasn't expecting Damon to leave and go to SMU. But I've been working with Brian Ullman and everyone in the athletic department, and they've been great, and they understood my concerns and what I want. And again, I don't want monumental things. I just want this program to be the best it can be, and I think I'm not asking for that much.
So, are you staying?
As of right now, I'm staying, Kev. Yes.
As of right now, but are you going to get the things are you comfortable right now saying that you're going to get the things you need and you are going to be at Maryland as the head coach next year and beyond?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's Brian Ullman has been phenomenal. He's actually the first guy that's come up to me. One of my issues is I just didn't have a great.
Tell everybody who Brian is.
Brian's it's the CEO. I'm not sure what his title is. He's in the athletic department, and he's way up there. There's a lot of people up there.
Okay, just so everybody knows. Yeah.
But he's been great. He's the first guy that's actually sat down with me, talked to me, and really found out what my concerns and what I really wanted, because it's not a contractual thing for me. It's more of a program thing for me. And Brian and I are on the same page. He has been awesome. He has put a lot of what I've felt over the last 3 years about the program. I think he's finally starting to understand where I want this program to go. And that's all that matters to me. I want this, what Lefty did, what Gary did, what Mark did, what I want to try to do is elevate this program to the best. It's what our fans want. It's what my donors want. They talk about it all the time. It's what I want. It's what my expectations are. And when you're at a place like Maryland, there's just certain things that need to be done to be at the top of college basketball. And I can tell you that I don't know if Brian's trying to get the AD job, but Brian has been phenomenal.
So that's Kevin Willard yesterday on the Kevin Sheehan Show on the Team 980. Brian Ullman, kind of curious he doesn't know his title, and maybe that's pushing him towards being named athletic director. Again, the tweet that came out yesterday from the school president, Daryl Pines, exciting announcement tomorrow. Stay tuned, Terps. I mean, certainly it's related to this. I don't think they're going to go as far as announce a contract extension for Kevin Willard, though they could do both. Brian Ullman's the new athletic director, and he replaces Damon Evans, who's now at SMU, and there's a contract extension for Kevin Willard. He got what he wanted. Here's the other part of this equation. At Villanova, he would be the top dog there, okay? Because the football program is like what used to be 1AA. I think they call it FCS. They don't compete in the same arena that Maryland football competes in. The thing about Maryland football is good season is 8 wins. You go to the Mayo Bowl, which is taking on less and less relevance with the 12-team playoff. But, okay, I mean, they cannot, and I don't think they will ever be competing in the same arena with schools like Michigan and Ohio State. It's just not realistic. But Mike Locksley, who again, the bar is lower than it is for Kevin Willard, because Kevin Willard at Maryland should be in position to compete for national championships on a regular basis. That's not the expectation for Mike Locksley, but the money works out in the way. It's about what I understand, it's about a 70-30 split. Most of the money, which is television money, goes to football. And although Maryland has trouble getting even a decent crowd for games that don't involve teams like Ohio State and Michigan, they're a football school. There's no getting around it. That's, if you're a Big Ten team, you're a football school. That's just the reality of it. So, and I like Mike Locksley a lot. I don't think they should make a coaching change. But what Mike Locksley is expected to do is a lot different than what Kevin Willard is expected to do. And this was kind of a surprise answer yesterday as Locksley was holding a news conference, not about this, but about the start of spring practice for the football team. But, he's always cooperative with reporters. He always answers questions. And he answered the question about, hey, what do you think Kevin Willard is up to here?
Family business is family business. So, I have no comment on any of those things. I mean, it doesn't pertain to my business.
I wanted to ask you about Coach Willard's comments over the weekend, talking about kind of the revenue share and with Damon leaving, obviously. Did you see them, and what were your thoughts on them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm an old school DC guy. Family business is family business. So, I have no comment on any of those things. I mean, it doesn't pertain to my business. It doesn't pertain to what I need to do. So, as I've stated, since I've been here, I've gotten the resources that I've needed to build a foundation. I've learned in 33 years of coaching, there are no utopias. Every family has their issues and their dirty little secrets, but I'm of the opinion those are handled individually, handled behind closed doors within family ranks.
Okay, so what Locksley did there, and I like him, I respect him. But what he's saying is, hey, I'm not complaining over here. Well, he really shouldn't be complaining because all this money going to football for a football program he can talk about competing for Big Ten championships, and I don't know if the dominoes will fall in the right way that he could someday do that, but it's really not realistic for the football program. So he's saying, no, I'm okay. They give me money. And, the basketball coach over there, he's airing dirty laundry. He shouldn't really be doing that. Well, reverse the situations. Put yourself in the shoes of Kevin Willard, Mike Locksley, who wants to compete for national titles, has a chance to go to Villanova where they have won national titles, I think 2 of them within the last 10 years. And wouldn't you be enticed? I would think, and maybe he wouldn't, and he's been loyal to the school. He's worked there as an assistant coach, I think twice. He's been an interim coach, and he's come back and I think has done a good job. But let's say Ohio State and or Michigan are trying to entice you. They both won national titles the last 2 years. Michigan 2 years ago, Ohio State the year before. You don't think he'd be using that as leverage? I don't know about that. If I don't really think Mike should have gone there. I think he's a little angry about that. I deal with what I have to deal with here. I'm working my butt off, and I know he is. To deal with the circumstances that we have here, and he said at the beginning, "Hey, I'm a local guy, I'm doing this, partly because I want Maryland to be good, and I do believe that he's got great coaching experience. He might be able to go someplace that is more of a football school, but because of the fact that this is really a unique circumstance, I would think, not totally unique, but it's one of a handful of schools in the country where winning a basketball championship would be bigger than a football championship. As great as it would be and an impossible dream as it seems for Maryland to win the playoff and be crowned national champs, basketball has been the sport at the school forever. I mean, what Lefty Driesell created in the late 60s and the early 70s has made Maryland one of the premier basketball programs in the country. And football's never gotten there. They had an undefeated season with Jerry Claiborne in 76, and they lost their bowl game, the Cotton Bowl, to the University of Houston. Even if they won that game and were undefeated, they wouldn't have won the title. That went to Pitt, which had a perfect record that year, and the Heisman Trophy winner in Tony Dorsett. And they've had some good seasons along the way. And Ralph Friedgen did a great job there. He had 3 10-win seasons. But what Mike Locksley is saying there is, I'm going to be a good company man, and this guy over here in basketball who's complaining about what he doesn't have, that's not the way I do business. I wonder if there's some issues there, and could there be some professional jealousy too, in that maybe he knows what Willard is asking for in a contract is more than what Mike Locksley makes, and you could say, well, he deserves it because he's gotten his team to the Sweet 16. They're still in contention to win the national title, and he's proven that he can build teams that can win 2 of the 3 years in the NCAA tournament. So, maybe he is worth more money. And Locksley is saying, well, I'm the football coach, and football brings in more cash. He doesn't say that, but he's implicating that. So this is going in an interesting direction, let's say. Tom Izzo yesterday, I wouldn't say mild-mannered because he's quite animated on the court, and this time of the season his voice is almost completely gone. But what you're going to hear coming up is, and we'll go through it, and I'll pause it probably a couple of times because it starts out slow, and he ramps up, and he ramps up, and he ramps up. He's going to start to give you a short answer about the transfer portal, but he can't help himself. And once the train starts rolling down the tracks, look out. We'll get to that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
So the portal opened up yesterday in college basketball, the transfer portal. Wait a minute. Isn't the college basketball season still going on? Oh, yes, it is. It's going to go another 2 weekends. We got the Sweet 16 this weekend and the Final Four next weekend. The college basketball season won't end until April the 7th. Today is the 26th of March. How could the portal possibly be open? Well, the portal is open, and it's open for business, and there are 700 players in the portal. 700 players. I believe that's around a quarter of the players playing college basketball, and not all of them are unhappy with their situation. It's just that they want to see how much more money they can get, and they may wind up staying at the school they already are with the leverage of somebody else wants me for this amount of money. Will you match it or will you top it? And that's the world we're living now in college basketball. A lot of the old-timers have gotten out. Jim Larinaga, who actually did benefit from the portal a couple of years ago and got Miami to the Final Four, well, the portal hasn't gone the way he wanted it to, so he checked out around Christmas of this year. But some of the old-timers are still at it. Calipari is in his mid-60s. He's got Arkansas in the Sweet 16. Rick Pitino bowed out against John Calipari in the round of 32. He's 72 and is apparently coming back at St. John's next year and says he's going to take advantage of the portal. He says, I'll probably never recruit a high school player again. Well, Tom Izzo built his program at Michigan, and he's had one of the best programs in the country for 30 years. And he built it on the back of high school players, some who were good enough to be one and done, some who stayed a couple of years, and a lot of them who stayed 4 years and didn't necessarily play in the NBA, but had great college careers and great college experiences by getting to at least the Sweet 16. I want to say like 16 times. It's amazing. He's been to a bunch of Final Fours, won a national championship, and that's the game that he has coached for all this period of time. Now, he's not checking out. He's 70 years old and has said, sadly, to John Feinstein, the last column that Feinstein wrote, that he had no plans to retire. He's coming back next year at the age of 70. But he's dealing with a new world now. And as Danny Hurley said to 60 Minutes a couple of weeks ago, 50% of his players he knew were going to transfer. They knew where they were going to go and how much money they were going to get from the new school. So Izzo, I'm sure, is dealing with that as well. And so yesterday, during his news conference to preview this game against Ole Miss, which is coming up on Friday in the Sweet 16, obviously the question of the portal came up with the portal now open. And listen to this, because I'm gonna pause it at a couple of points. This Izzo starts out by talking about how he's not going to really get into this because he wants to get his team concentrated on playing this game, and he can't really deal with the portal right now. But it turns into nearly a 9-minute rant, and you'll hear him as he gets more and more enraged about this and finally reaches a crescendo on this with now 700 players in the portal, not to mention the players who are on the Sweet 16 teams now who, once their season is over, whether it's in the Final Four or before, they're going in the portal. And Michigan, which is in the Sweet 16, they've already lost Scottie Pippen's kid, who's checked out. He's not even going to go through being with his team and possibly helping to cut down the nets, even though his playing time is limited. So what? He's part of a team that wins a national championship. No, he's not even going to wait around for that. He's in the portal now. So, again, this is Tom Izzo, Michigan State coach, on the portal being open while the NCAA tournament moves into the Sweet 16.
It's not a loaded question. It's one I really have zero interest in answering because I think it's ridiculous that the NCAA or any other entity put these two things together, is that people like you have to ask these questions, and I value that you have to ask them, and I do get upset when, people are talking to our kids about them. I saw what happened at one school that, teams get a chance to play in the Sweet 16 and people are entering the transfer portal. Kids got to do what they got to do.
So, okay. So at that point, it looks like this is going to be a short answer. He's blowing it off. He's not going to really deal with it. But then he starts to talk a little bit more and starts to think to himself, and Tom Izzo continues.
And they're really not doing what they got to do. They're doing what their parents or their agents are telling them to do, because they still got to go to practice, go in the same locker room unless they leave the team. And I think that's insane. I think it's disgusting. But, that's my own personal opinion. We will always have an eye on the transfer portal. I mean, we get it. It's printed out now. It's, we're back to rankings. This is the number 1 transfer in this. This is the number 3 transfer, Some more guys that don't have a clue that do that. And, of course, we'll look at everything if something happens. But I'm not going in to – I learned something from my boss, Judd Heathcote, and there is a happy medium on this. And I know this isn't normal, but nothing's normal. That's why I coined it, let's be different, okay? But he used to always say to me when I was working my tail off in recruiting, because he didn't do as much, and he'd say, the problem with you new young guys is you're always trying to replace the guys you got instead of making the guys you got better. Is that fair to the guys you got, that you're out spending time on somebody else and you're not taking care of them? Happy medium. You always got to recruit good players, and you always got to have players you recruit. Well, I'm going to tell you something that I learned. If you're loyal to your players and they want to get better, then your obligation is to the people that you brought here. Now, if they don't want to get better or they aren't doing their job, nowadays there won't be as many people that are hanging on to people and letting them. There'll be more runoffs. Could happen here, could happen somewhere else. But the last thing I want to do is cheat my players. I mean, we're working 24/7 on 3 teams right now. And if somebody's better than me that can work 24/7 plus being interested in getting somebody that's better than somebody they got, and that's the way it's going in our thing, All
right, so he's gone about 3 minutes there, and he's been calm about it, and his message is, I'm not really thinking about the transfer portal. What I have to do is get my team ready to play in the NCAA tournament or continue in the tournament and have a chance to go to the Final Four by winning 2 games this weekend. Could have stopped there. But oh no, Tom Izzo was not done.
I'm just not one of those guys. If that's what our fan base wants, our media wants, then it's not me. But I'm disgusted by the fact that we even have to deal with this at this time. And last year, the NCAA, or whoever's making these rules, had it the first day after Selection Sunday. So while everybody was celebrating that they got picked to go to the NCAA tournament, we have this going on. Something wrong with us if we're doing that. And I'd like to take some blame since I've been on committees, but I've made it pretty known we have no say in that. Okay? So I'm done talking about it. I appreciate you have the right to ask me that. But you know what? I got 15, 16 guys that have just accomplished something that hasn't been done much in my career. First of all, we've never won 17 Big Ten games. Second of all, to be 17-3 in a league that is this good and only have 3 losses is phenomenal. Third of all, they've given me everything they can academically, athletically, and socially. And I'm going to think about replacing them. I've recruited the guys. They helped me recruit the guys who recruit. Nobody knows. And by the way, there's not a lot of recruiting done in the transfer portal.
Okay, so he's gone about halfway here. He's remained calm, basically calm, and he's gotten to the point where it's really starting to piss him off now because he's just mentioned that there's really no recruiting anymore. Because as Steve Alford said over the weekend, there's only one question that a recruit asks when you talk to him about going to your school: how much? How much? That's the only question they ask. How much money am I going to be paid? Not how good is your library? What's your curriculum? I need to see the campus. What's your living arrangements? No. How much? And a lot of it comes from the parents, too. The parents are the ones that are driving this because they're acting as agents, or they have agents, which is really bizarre because there's no contracts. But, okay. So, all right. That's about halfway for Izzo. He's got another 4 minutes to go. And what you're going to hear is him, as he talks to the reporters about this, getting more and more angry about the circumstances that college basketball is in at the moment.
It's offering. There's not recruiting. It's paying. And we don't even know how these people are doing it. We don't even know what we can do yet. This is an amazing deal. And again, I'm going to apologize to you, but I am ticked off that you asked me that right now, because I think you just cheated me. So if I keep talking, I cheat my players, and I'll cheat myself before I'll cheat my players. So if you got another question about the transfer portal, I can lift you a lot of schools you can call and ask them. They might have the better opinion than me. But me, I'm homed in on Ole Miss. I might even call Mr. Manning and figure out something that I don't know about that place. And that's all I want. Chris Beard, what he's done has been incredible. But what my team's done has been incredible. And I'm not ready to move on. So, Judd, I've followed what you said. I'm going to worry today about the guys I got in this program.
Okay, so now we've reached the point. We're going to hit the crescendo. This will be the finishing kick from Tom Izzo as he has now worked himself up. He's gone about 6 minutes, almost 6 minutes here, working himself up to the point where he's going to have his big message down the stretch. Here we go.
That have done an incredible job this year, and that's it. And if that costs me later, so be it. But Tom Izzo isn't cheating the people that he has that have been loyal to him for this chaos that is going on out there. Is that cool? You got enough?
I wanted to ask today because I know we'll talk to you.
No, because you don't understand. When I came back Sunday night, that was it. There was nothing on my mind but giving these guys a chance to win one more game, get to Elite Eight, and one more game, and have a memory that'll last their entire life, their kids' life, and their grandkids' life, because that's what it is. And so excuse me for being passionate about it or pissed off about it, whichever words you want to use, but I'm not going to talk about it because it's not fair. It's not fair to the people. You could say it's fair to your program. I'll run my program like I want to run my program. And people have a disagreement with that, God bless them. But these guys that gave me everything they could give me are going to have a chance. And I'm not going to screw it up by spending any time on other stuff other than, I don't eat, I don't sleep right now. So why in the hell would I do something else that might benefit me a year from now? And really, it's not going to benefit me now because I don't know what I have. I don't know how much money I have. I don't know which players are leaving or staying. I don't have any idea. So why would I do that? Waste of time. All right, let's get back to some good things. That's not insulting. I'm not mad at you. I mean, I kind of am, but I'm not really. But I think you should know me well enough. But I learned from Stephen A. and some. You have the right to ask the question.
That's why I asked today.
Yeah. No, but today is. Don't say it that way. Just say I asked the question, because today doesn't matter any more than Friday to me. This is a full week of work. I got 3 teams to prepare for. Okay? Because that's what we do. We try to win the weekend. Winning one game and losing the other doesn't turn me on. Doesn't excite me. But the weekend, that excites me. Appreciate it. It wasn't a preach. It wasn't a, don't do that to me, okay? Well, he's on a sermon now. No. You're talking about something that is wrong, what we're doing. Because it's not, we always talk about what's fair to the kids. That's what the NCAA, that's what everybody, and that's what the media, what's fair to the kid? What is fair to the kids? I'm going to do what's fair to the kids. I'm going to give them every ounce of energy I have until we lose. Then I'll worry about the next stage.
Okay, it should be pointed out, and I really admire Tom Izzo. He's done a great job there, and there's never been a hint of scandal or anything with this program, and he's produced one of the great programs in the history of college basketball. But he's got a multi-million-dollar contract. He's secure, and he's got players who some will be in the NBA, not many, very small percentage, and the others are trying to get what they can. And if there were a system in place, if they would sign contracts and you would have renewable contracts, let's say it's a 2-year deal. This is what I've always thought, 2-year deal. Player, if he wants to leave, has a buyout, can go to another school after a year. At the end of 2 years, the school decides whether they want to renew the contract. That's how the real world works, and you do it that way. But what we have is anarchy. He's right about that. We don't have any. I mean, it's insane that the transfer portal is open in the middle of the NCAA tournament, that there are 16 teams still playing, and we don't know which players are going to be leaving from those 16 teams and which teams are going to be coming to those 16 teams from the other schools. It's crazy. And we have no system for paying the players. It's just whatever they can negotiate and however the boosters come up with the money and who has the right booster, like Patino, who's got the vitamin water guy who cashed out his company to Coke for billions. I mean, that's really what it is. So I kind of see it from both sides. I see a young man and a family who maybe didn't have a lot of money and having an opportunity to get $100,000, $200,000 a year, which is significant money for a family that's struggling. Why not? Why not get it while you can? On the other hand, the way college basketball has operated, and I'm not saying it's been fair, but the world that Tom Izzo has lived in for 40 years, 45 years, including being an assistant coach, that's not the world anymore. And there's no order. There's no rules to this world. So I kind of get it from both sides. That was Izzo yesterday. We'll hear a much calmer, cooler, and jovial Tom Izzo coming up in about half an hour. Danny Hurley, after losing to Florida over the weekend, said that his team lost with honor, which they did. They played a tough team, and they took them down to pretty much to the end. They lost by 2 points, and as two-time defending champions, winners of 13 straight NCAA tournament games, if you're going to go down, you go down fighting, and he went out that way, and there was some class in the way his team played. There was no class as he walked off the court into the tunnel and saw the Baylor team going out on the court to get ready to play Duke. And this is how Danny Hurley conducted himself, the head coach of the two-time defending champions. You got to win with class, you got to lose with class, and he did not.
I hope they don't do that to you, man.
Yeah, message, hope they don't F you like they F'd us. Okay? That's, if a player says that, especially at the high school level, the coach may kick him off the team or at least suspend him or discipline him. But no, he's the head coach. He's a grown man. He's in his 50s now and conducting himself that way. And I thought Seth Davis yesterday on the Rich Eisen show put it pretty well on where Danny Hurley is right now. He's still one of the best, if not the best, coaching college basketball. But, this is a diminishing returns here if you're going to behave like this. And frankly, when you watch this, it's probably a good idea you didn't go to the Lakers because they don't play 30 games a year. They play 82, and if you go deep, that's another 20, 25 games in the playoffs. That's a lot of real anger after losses, and they're going to be losses no matter how good you are. So this was Davis yesterday, part of the CBS crew, on with Eisen on where Danny Hurley stands right now and where he seemingly needs to go.
I think he did a really, really good job with this team. You know, this notion that they were going to win 3 in a row is just, I never bought into it because, I mean, they lost 4 starters. Now, you had to wonder because the previous year they lost 5 of their top 8 players from the first championship team and were able to win it again. So you sort of had that latitude, well, let's see. So I never ranked them. I think I started off in the preseason, my first AP ballot, Rich, maybe had them 10th, but I think they may have been 2nd or 3rd in the poll. So I was always like, let's maybe wait and see, but still 10th is pretty high. And Danny, regrettably, really fell into that, especially in Maui when they lost those 3 games, like just expecting to pick up where he left off the season before. And I think once he got back into kind of coaching these guys, and then they had a major injury with freshman Liam McNeely, Alex Caravan, a lot of people thought he would be like a first-team All-American. He was a good player, but he wasn't that. So they had a lot to work through. But at the end of the season, they were right there. And when you saw them against Florida, it was like, that's a Danny Hurley coach team. I mean, they took it right to that number 1 seed. So I love his vulnerability. I love his authenticity. You saw him getting emotional. Again, those players wouldn't play for him the way they do if he made it all about him. But there is definitely another side to that coin. We can say it's part of what makes him great. When you walk off the court and you're saying to Baylor, I hope they don't screw you like they screwed us, what you're saying is that Florida didn't deserve to win. That's not respecting your opponent, and that's not respecting the game. And Dan has a regrettable tendency to fall into that when he gets frustrated. And again, it's part of what makes him great, but it's part of stuff like that you can't defend. And so I don't like the way that he treats referees a lot of times. I think that, frankly, the NCAA and refs in general need to constantly look at the way that coaches talk to officials and act. I think they've gotten better in that regard. He won 2 national championships. And so the only thing worse than not having Danny Hurley, the only thing better than not having Danny Hurley as your coach is having him as your coach because he's going to win. And so he's a larger than life character at this point with a lot of rough edges. But I'll say this about him, Rich, he's no phony. There are a lot of phonies out there, and no one will ever accuse Dan Hurley of being phony. We got to give him that.
Well, we had similar conversations, and that's Seth Davis yesterday on the Rich Eisen Show. Similar conversations 30 years ago about Robert Montgomery Knight, who won not 2, but 3 national championships at Indiana. And we talked about rough edges. Now, his edges appear to be a little bit rougher than Danny Hurley. And the Neil Reed tape of him choking Neil Reed was what ultimately got him kicked out of Indiana, though they gave him another chance after that. It took him accosting a student who called him Knight as he was walking through campus, which finally pushed him out the door. We haven't seen Danny Hurley go that far, but this is what happens when you win. People make excuses for you. And if Danny Hurley had a team that bowed out in the first round of the tournament and that was their first time in like 4 years, he'd be fired. And they would use that against him for what he did in the tunnel, saying to Baylor, I hope they don't F you like they F'd us. But when you win, there are people who say, well, yeah, he's got some rough edges and maybe he needs to turn around. Yeah, he does. And probably his dad, who is really intense, and if you've seen footage of his dad never coached in college, could have. He had offers, but felt like he was better in high school. And maybe because, this is the only thing I've seen on tape. I haven't seen him be abusive to any players. And I'm not saying that Danny Hurley is either. But when you have that kind of intensity, it's tough to control your emotions. And when you can't control your emotions, see Robert Montgomery Knight, it ultimately sinks you. And, if Knight would have been able to control himself at times better, I think his legacy would be a little bit different. And his legacy is a lot related to the great book that John Feinstein wrote almost 40 years ago, Season on the Brink, and we'll look at John Feinstein's life coming up at 10 o'clock as I attended a great service memorial for him yesterday. All right, coming up in the next hour, Derik Queen. A couple of interesting comments on the Pat McAfee Show. McAfee's in love with him, not just for the shot that he hit the other night, but the fact that he said in the huddle, "Give me the MFing ball." And also Rock Kabatko of Masson on where the Orioles are heading into the season. It's the Andy Pollard Show, ESPN 630.
Oh,
We got a weird circumstance going on with the University of Maryland basketball program. On one hand, it's the most successful season they've had in 9 years. First time in the Sweet 16 since 2016. But you have the coach who's sort of here, sort of not. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go to Villanova? Who's the athletic director? Who's he negotiating with? Is everything going to be okay? Or are they going to have their season end possibly tomorrow night and have to look for a new coach at the same time? It's a bizarre circumstance, and we'll spend a little bit of time on that as well today. If you've just joined the show, we started off with this, and yesterday Kevin Willard was supposed to do a radio appearance on the Junkie Show on 106.7, didn't post, and that led to wild speculation. Oh, he's negotiating with Villanova, and he doesn't want to say anything. And later in the morning, Kevin Sheehan, who does a show on 980, caught up with him, and he said, no, I just overslept. But when pressed on, are you staying at Maryland, he says, right now I am. So where that goes, we'll have to see. And, boy, the guy who would get to the bottom of this, who was as good a reporter as there ever has been, not just for sports, but for news, was John Feinstein. And John Feinstein passed away last week suddenly at the age of 69. And yesterday at the Congressional Country Club, where he was a member, they had wasn't really a service because there was no prayer, there were no prayers or anything like that, but they had speakers. And boy, you talk about speakers. His brother, Bobby Feinstein, was the MC and also spoke about John, known him obviously his whole life. Mike Krzyzewski, he didn't post, but he put up a video. And then Jackson Deal, who was part of a Pulitzer Prize winning team at the Washington Post, had known John since they basically started together almost 50 years ago. Sally Jenkins and Mary Carrillo, you know those two names. David Marinis won a Pulitzer Prize, also wrote one of the great sports books ever, When Pride Still Mattered, about Vince Lombardi and the Packers. That's probably 25 years ago at least. Gary Williams, Hall of Fame coach. He'd known John since Gary was a coach at American University, a young coach in the late 70s, and they had maintained a friendship all these years. And the final speaker was Bob Woodward. And Bob Woodward has to be the greatest reporter ever. You know, his name with Bernstein, Carl Bernstein, is part of American history. They took down the president of the United States. Their work in journalism, speaks for you. Just say their names. You know who they are. You know their history, and you know how important they are to the United States of America. Well, Bob Woodward had been John's editor when John started out working in the Metro section, and and if you've ever heard Woodward speak, he's got this very thick Midwestern accent, and he tends to pronounce full syllables. So he doesn't say reporter, he says reporter. And so he got up, and it's kind of jarring to hear this from such a legendary person, but he was the last speaker, and he looked at the crowd. The crowd was filled with people who accomplished great things in journalism and in sports. I mean, Ryan Odom, the new coach of Virginia, made a point to be there because John had covered him back in his UMBC days, and that was part of what made John such a great reporter. He developed relationships with people all along the way. Didn't matter what level of sports they were in. He got to know them and maintain friendships and relationships with them over the years. Bob Ryan, Boston Globe legend, is there. I happen to sit next to Leslie Visser, one of the trailblazers in journalism for women. Mark Allery, part of the great Duke teams, he was there. Tony did show up. He and John had a contentious relationship over the years. Wilbon was not there. He was out on the West Coast doing apparently a college tour with his son. But, man, you just look across the crowd and the people who are there, and Woodward looks at probably 200 people there, and he looks out and he says, this is going to be effing fun, although he didn't use effing. He used the full word. That drew kind of a laugh. But he said this. He said, when I was the Metro editor, the Maryland editor approached him and said, we have to fire John Feinstein. And he said, in retrospect, we missed a great opportunity. And that drew a big response from the crowd. But he was great. Gary was just brilliant, as always, like just, sarcastic and funny. And as a matter of fact, with the video of Krzyzewski, they had trouble getting the sound. So his face was up on the screen for a while before they could finally get the sound to work. But they postponed he was supposed to be the first, and they postponed the video until after the other speakers talked. And so Gary got up and he says, I hope that guy's picture still isn't on the screen, which got a big laugh. In fact, somebody yelled out when they couldn't get the sound up that Gary muted him. But, the things that were said about John and it's warts and all. And people as great as they are and whatever they accomplish, there are flaws. Everybody has their flaws. And there's a quote that I've thought of throughout my life, and I know I can't avoid drifting into it from time to time, but I've tried to avoid it. The Henry David Thoreau quote, the mass of men lead lives of quiet desperation, which means that many people lead uneventful lives filled with boredom and unfulfilled desires, often conforming to societal expectations instead of pursuing their true passions. And that wasn't John. John was, as Krzyzewski said, he was on a full-court press all the time. And he worked and he worked, and he could do so many things. He could do incredible things at once. He could do a talk show and write a book at the same time and eat lunch. And he liked to eat. And as Mary Carrillo said, he killed a lot of cows along the way because John's favorite meal was steak. And he ate at a lot of high-end steakhouses, often on somebody else's dime. He was a force, and he was the Oscar Madison profile with the way he dressed. And Mary talked about being in his car and wondering whether she should get a tetanus shot after she got out because of all the wrappers and trash that was in it. That's just who he was. But he cranked out 48 books, 23 of them New York Times bestsellers. I mean, just remarkable. And he did it not just with, high-profile people like Bobby Knight, and he also, followed a number of coaches, Dean Smith and Gary Williams and people like that, where he wrote a full season of ACC basketball. He did it for the smaller schools. The Last Amateurs, about Ivy League basketball. His favorite book, and he said this many times, his favorite book was The Civil War, about the Army-Navy game, all those things. So, I just was so privileged to be there and to be among some of the greatest people in the history of sports journalism and journalism, obviously with Bob Woodward, and people in sports, great people in sports. I mean, how many of us can think of being eulogized in the same event by the winningest basketball coach of all time and the greatest reporter who ever lived, 2 Pulitzer Prize winners, a Hall of Fame basketball coach along with Krzyzewski, and all of that for John. And these were all people who he was friends with. And for all the bombast and all the angry rants that he had about people and how he got into fights with people, not personal, but they were all about his opinions. For all of that, when it came time to honor him, some of those people flew across the country because they wanted to talk about him and be with people who knew him and really just to honor his legacy. And it's a complicated one, for sure. I mean, people, when my time comes, I won't have a star-studded group talking about me in this way, and I don't think I'll have too many people talking about all the angry episodes that I had in my life because I don't try not to have that many of them. And I probably lead my life more towards conforming. And at times I do drift into life of quiet desperation, which John never did. He always pursued his true passion, which was reporting and how much he never lost his love of sports. Although he was angry at a lot of things, including how money had ruined the games, he still loved the games, and he still loved the people who play them. And as David Marin has said, he was searching for something pure. And towards the end of his life, there were more and more books and columns about Patriot League, Ivy League, and in his last work, his last months of his life, were spent teaching at Longwood University and doing their basketball games, low-level Division I. And that is the legacy of John Feinstein, and just so well done in this event yesterday that took place at Congressional Country Club. So rest in peace, John. Everybody will miss you. Some of the things about you they won't miss, but they will miss the person very, very much. All right, yesterday, Derik Queen showed up on the Pat McAfee Show. I don't think Derik Queen was on McAfee's show, was on his radar, I should say, prior to what happened on Sunday night. But I think once McAfee found out that he went in the huddle and he said, "I want the MFing ball," that was right in his wheelhouse. As a matter of fact, I don't really watch the show, but sometimes I watch the clips on YouTube. And the way they handle it on ESPN, I guess it's on like a 7-second delay. So when he uses that word, they mute him. You don't hear any words come out of his mouth. But he relayed to the audience exactly what Derik Queen said in the huddle prior to that basket. And Queen said, "Yep, you quoted me accurately." And then they talked about about being being who he is right now in college basketball, that in a tournament which has lacked buzzer beaters, has lacked the type of shot that he hit, he's front and center and loving it.
This was my vision of doing like what I dreamed of, and I figured when we had a shot, probably first game of the season or second game of the season, where we really like came together, gelled. Like we all came here to win, do something. I mean, it's kind of like a whole new team from last year when they didn't make the tournament, and Coach Willard just like got us like an oil machine, put us together and got us working well together.
That answer, obviously awesome. Just like every time you've been on a microphone, it seems like you give great quotes. But I think it's a great sense of where you guys are at nowadays in college ball. You spoke basically like, hey, he's like the guy paying us. We are working for him. Is that the mindset that you've had? And do you think whenever you go to Florida for high school, does that kind of like prepare you to be, I don't want to say a professional, but a professional whenever it comes to all of this, including a lot of money, a lot of spotlight, a lot of possibility, a lot of potential distractions as well. Have you felt like more mature than maybe most people your age because of the experiences?
Yes, because I went to Mount Vera for 3 years by myself. And obviously with my team, but I had to start washing my clothes by myself, had to start kind of cooking by myself. I had to do a lot of stuff by myself, so that just really opened my mind up and ready me and got me ready for college. And then Coach Willard, like I said, he understands me because he understands my personality and stuff like that. That was a joke, but it's also being for real. But Coach Willard, he understands me because I like to joke around. I like to show my personality, and he's always there. He always laugh with me. He makes jokes too. And I think I also bring out the happy or the funniness out of him too.
Well, Willard is a self-proclaimed wise guy. He's a Jersey guy, and so I can imagine he appreciates that. And, one thing he said about Queen all year long, even before he took the court, he ain't going to be here long. He's going to the NBA. And he also went as far as to say that if Derik Queen were white and from Europe, he would be the first pick of the draft. Is he Nikola Jokic? No. He plays a similar type of game, not as big, and doesn't shoot the three yet, although he did hit a couple of threes the other night. But he has been a big part of the resurgence of Maryland basketball. And what Willard is saying now with this big rant that he had last week about how he needs certain things and how he needs for Maryland to be the program that he needs it to be, what he's going to require, and aired some dirty laundry about the school not wanting him to stay an extra night in New York because they didn't have the money to do it and things like that. He's saying to them, "You want more Derik Queens? Well, you're going to have to come up with more cash for NIL, and you're going to have to give me more of what I need to be able to create the program in this environment." Now, does this environment continue like this? Who knows? But I don't think you're going to get the toothpaste back in the tube. It's not going back to the way it was, back in the 90s, where, as Gary Williams said yesterday, I was recruiting this guy, and in those days you had to talk to the parents about academics. Well, that ship has sailed now. But, Queen is the prime example. You want more Derik Queens. You want me to go in the transfer portal like I had this year and brought in these guys who could shoot where we couldn't hit a shot last year. Well, I got to have what I need. So we'll see where that goes. And, again, we're waiting for an announcement today. I imagine it's going to be about who the athletic director is going to be, but it could be a possible extension for Kevin Willard. Yesterday on the Dan Patrick Show, Tom Izzo was on, and I don't know whether this was before or after this big rant that he had at his news conference about the transfer portal being open. Now, as you know, it opened up on Monday. And, it's right in the middle of the NCAA tournament. And you got 16 teams that are still alive, and there are players on those teams who are going to transfer. One of them already has. He hasn't picked a school yet. But Scottie Pippen's son, who is a backup at Michigan, out. Not even going to be a part of the team for what could be 4 more games. Nope, he's gone. He's gone. And there are probably others who wish they could be in that spot, maybe even on the 16 teams, don't have the chutzpah to do it, and are realizing that with the transfer portal open, some of the spots of where they might want to go are filling up with players who are already in it, where there are 700 as of yesterday. There may be more today. I mean, we're talking like a quarter of the guys who play college basketball. So this was Izzo on the transfer portal, much calmer with Dan Patrick yesterday, but still somewhat seething about the fact that it exists right in the middle of the NCAA tournament.
I'm putting everything towards my team. I owe them to that. I think, recruiting's very important. The transfer portal to me isn't as important yet, but recruiting is very important. And yet my old boss used to have a theory. He says, problem with young assistants, they spend so much time getting the next player, they forget to take care of the one they got. And I think there's some validity to that. There's a happy medium. My happy medium when you get to the Sweet 16 and on is, you don't always get here. So everything's going to be for my team, the players on my team. We'll let everybody else worry about the transfer portal. Hopefully winning helps somebody, even though you and I know it doesn't. It's all about the money now, but that's okay too.
But help me with the philosophy of recruiting, because you don't have many one and dones. Like Jason Richardson was a one and done. Do you go do you try to go after the one and doners, or do you have that philosophy of, I'll take the guy who might stay here 3 or 4 years?
No, I'd love to have Jaron Jackson, Miles Bridges, we're guys, Gary Harris that were 1 and 2 years and done. And, you got to have some, those kind of talented players, to do that. But, no, I don't shy away from that at all. It's just they're not as easy to get, for the most part. A lot of those programs, Duke and Kentucky has had more of those kind of players, maybe Kansas some. But I don't think there's as many programs as you think there are that are getting those kind of players.
How do you coach differently in March than November?
I don't think I coach that much differently. I just think that there's kind of a culture and a feel here that when it comes to February, everybody knows the NCAA tournament. We've had some success in it. And I think the players that come here expect everything to be ratcheted up a little bit as you get to the end of the year. And it's exciting. It's not like my players after we won on Sunday, the first thing they said in the locker room, because usually we give them Monday off, is let's practice Monday. That came from the players, so they know what time of year it is and they know what they got to do.
Is Michigan State a football school or a basketball school?
It's a football school, which I think 90% of these schools are, I have such a great relationship with all the football guys here. I've always had a great relationship with them because I realize that they're still making 70% of the money. Yeah. What I think is unique about Michigan State, and there's a couple schools that have this, is we've been pretty successful in both. 9 years ago, we both went to a Final Four. Those are what's really exciting about schools like this.
Ever coached against a coach that you don't like?
Sure, you do. Even though I get along with most of the coaches, but there's coaches I wouldn't say don't like. Maybe I didn't respect as much because of things that were going on. Now that's changed now because we don't have any rules anymore. So it doesn't, it's easier now. I can like everybody.
Okay, but if so are we talking about if somebody was cheating? Like you're going to face somebody and they were cheating.
Huh?
That's when you have that, I don't respect you?
That's what I have privately. I don't share that publicly very often. But I mean.
But what's it like in the handshake line? You don't walk by and go, cheater. And then just good game, cheater. Good game.
Yeah, I don't do that at all. I think I respect every coach I go against because even the guys that I thought were doing stuff back in the day, I know how hard these jobs are. And Judd used to say the game makes fools of us all. Well, there's some truth to that.
When's the last time you asked Magic Johnson to help you with a recruit?
I ask him all the time, but I really don't have to ask him. He's always tweeting out something or he's saying something. And, now they're actually allowed to help you legally.
Yeah.
If you come to campus and they get there, it used to be where, if you had a football game and just happened that Magic seats were behind the recruit seat. But now you can sit them right with them as long as they're on campus. But, Magic's been great. A lot of the former players that I coached have been great with it. And it helps when you have a Jace Richardson, son of a player. That's getting good. I'm going for grandsons, though, now, Dan.
How much longer? You got these coaches who are saying, I don't want to do it anymore. It's the transfer portal, NIL, and it's just not the way it once was. So what's motivating you to continue to do this?
Stubbornness. To be honest with you, it's total stubbornness. I still love what I do. I don't like what has gone on. I don't think anybody does, to be very honest with you. And, some say it, some don't say it. But right now, I've taken a better stance with myself. For a couple of years, I was on all those committees, and I just kind of gotten off where I don't worry about my team and not worry about all the things that I can't control. And unfortunately, nobody can control what's going on right now. There is no control. That saddens me for our profession, but it is what it is. So I'll, when in Rome, do like the Romans,
It sounded like a grumpy old man get off my lawn where you were talking about playing games after 10 o'clock on the West Coast in the tournament.
It was grumpy. I just think it's very difficult to do that. We do, Dan, I don't know what you did at Dayton, but we do go to school here too. We are student athletes.
Yeah, we never did that at Dayton.
I know. I understand that. But when you get back at 3 a.m, now you got to prep. It's just more difficult. I understand that TV pays the bills. I love all the TV people. So I got no problem, but it does get to wear on you sitting there all day. And it's one part I'd like to see changed a little bit, but it is what it is. So I don't think I sounded grumpy about it. I just expressed my opinion, but you express your opinion all the time. Are you
and I'm grumpy. Yes, I'm a get off my lawn guy. I think this had to do with your bedtime, and that's what you were bothered by.
No, I don't go to sleep now. Hey, listen, with the transfer portal, you don't go to sleep ever. you kind of go over and sit with your players, make sure nobody's flying in and tampering with them.
Do you have your phone on vibrate?
Yeah.
By your bed?
Yeah.
Okay. After midnight?
Oh, yeah. all the time. I mean, you never know what's going to happen. You know, there's a lot of things that happen, but
if you had to bail somebody out of jail or anything like that,
have I had to in the past? There's things like that happen. Yeah. You know, sometimes not always for bad things, you know, parking tickets and he gets picked up or something. But yeah, any coach that tells you they don't have their phone on at night or they sleep, probably lying to you.
Single best player you ever coached against was who?
Boy, you know, when I was an assistant, Shaq, I played against Grant Hill, I thought was one of the greatest players. But boy, that's a loaded question. And I'm not saying that against anybody. They're just, man, when you're at this level, you play against a lot of great players.
What was the scouting report on Shaq?
Really big. I was just a GA back then. That was in my early days. And I remember telling Judd, boy, that guy's a big guy, you know. But he was good. He was good. I like Shaq.
But you know who was so good was Chris Jackson.
He was.
He was
good.
Damn.
More my size, too. That's why I should like the guy a lot more.
But I mean, imagine him in today's game. He would break you off the dribble, crossover, and he was so quick with that jumper.
Yeah, and he could shoot it from long range. So he probably would fit in since the three is more prevalent now. I don't even think the three had just come in then. It was right around that time. Because I know we had Scott Skiles, and we didn't have a three-point shot then. That was in '86.
Now, help me. Is the story true about Scott Skiles and John Thompson?
It was in Dayton.
Yet at the tournament, right?
Yeah, there was nothing bad with John Thompson, but they really got after him the first half. And I think Scott was 0 for 9. And I just remember that halftime. He was sitting in there, and we were playing Georgetown. And, I mean, he was seething, you know, and he played really good the second half. We won. So, you know, Scott had a tendency to talk stuff, but tell you what, he was a hell of a player.
Did he say to Thompson while dribbling the ball to John on the sidelines, why don't you get somebody bleeping out here who can guard me?
Did he guard me?
Yes.
You know, I didn't hear it. I heard about it, but I do believe it. I do believe it. It was one of the things that Scott was good at, but he backed up what he said, so you got to give him credit there.
Oh, my, that's some chutzpah. John Thompson, 6'10", Scott Skiles, maybe 6'3". He was a great college player and a pretty good pro player. Played here for a while with the Bullets. But, I mean, the chutzpah as a college player to go past the sidelines and say to John Thompson, get somebody out here who can effing guard me. That's great. Anyway, that's Izzo, much calmer than he was at his news conference about the transfer portal, but he's seething about it, and the fact that it's open with the tournament going on is insane. Orioles preview coming up next. It's the Andy Pollard Show, ESPN 630.